We will begin this 1 minute. Good evening, everyone. It's December 5th, and this is the Manhattan Community Board 11 Youth and Education Committee. We are beginning at 6:36. Welcome all that are here tonight. We have quite a few presentations tonight, so we're going to kind of move the agenda forward. I am at this point going to table the mission statement to continue to work on, and I'll talk more about that when we get to it, just so that we have time to give to all the presenters tonight. Before we begin, we do have to go over some of the ground rules. This meeting is called to order again at 6:36. Tonight, we are joined by Khalid Nixon, our Assistant District Manager for Community Board 11. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, we need to observe the following ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find raise hand function. If you have technical difficulty, click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the board staff. Members should not engage in back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak upon raising their hand. The chat should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record when recognized. And the reason for that is this is a public record and people it's recorded. All such topics should remain, again, germane to the discussion and wait to be recognized. Please keep your questions and comments brief on the topic of discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subject or the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized as well. Now we will conduct a roll call. Khalid, please.
Yes. Okay, members, please remember there are 10 committee members in total. We need 6 in order to make quorum. Karim Kauser.
Present.
Rosa Diaz.
Present.
David Giordano.
Present.
John Green is excused. Annie Hansen. Okay, Christina Johnson.
Present.
Sage Mason. Jennifer Meyer.
Present.
Asher Rodriguez is excused. Isaac Scott. Response. Russell Schuler.
Present.
You have 6 members present. You have quorum, Chair.
Thank you. So as we go forward, we want to move to the adoption of the agenda for December. If anybody has any objections to the agenda, please raise your hand and we will be recognized. Also, we want to do the adoption of the November minutes. And again, thank you, Jennifer, for completing the minutes so thoroughly as we commented before you came in. So thank you. So at this point, if there are not any objections, we will adopt both the agenda and the minutes from the previous meeting and for the current. Seeing no hands raised, both the agenda and the minutes are adopted. I'd like to move very quickly into our informational updates and announcements. First up, do we have Dr. Christie?
Yes, I'm here.
Dr. Christie, it seems like I haven't seen you in so long over this holiday break, but I know we'll be in space again together, so welcome.
Yes, I first want to apologize. For some reason, I'm having technical difficulties and my screen is not working, so I apologize for my screen not working. And first and foremost, I want to start with gratitude. As the great Rashida Brown Harris always reminds me, that not everybody's heard.
Good evening. Oh. As a member of I Have a Dream staff.
You could tell I'm still in my office, so.
Thank you.
Sorry. But anyway, I just wanted to start with gratitude. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Just the fact that you are in this space. I know there's so many other things that you could be doing at a 6:30 on a Tuesday evening. And so I just want to thank each and every single one of you for your ongoing commitment to our East Harlem community. It is an honor and a privilege to serve this amazing community. Last night, I was able to join the mayor's town hall, and something that keeps coming up is about our budget cuts. I know you've heard it in the media, and even the mayor and the chancellor They've come to our principals conference meetings. They mentioned it last night about how we need to also reach out to our elected officials and our federal government regarding support with funding support. And so I just want to say that right now in East Harlem, we are fortunate that we have had an increase of students and our newest New Yorkers. So with the budget cuts coming up, we're in a good place because we have students in our schools. However, we are continuing to advocate for our community schools. Right now, we're okay, but it was even mentioned last night that a lot of the funding for our community schools came through stimulus funding, and we know that the stimulus funding no longer exists. So I'm encouraging everyone here to please help us keep our community schools and our partnerships. Our students, our families, our community thrives on our community-based partnerships. And what that means is our after-school programs, our tutoring within the day, all of the things that really help the wraparound services that our schools receive. In conjunction with that, this Thursday, we've encouraged all of our schools to go to the capital funding grant writing with the Manhattan Borough President, with Mark Levine. Our facilities need repairs, and I want to thank our Community Education Council. I want to thank everyone here in the Community Board 11. We have some beautiful buildings in East Harlem, and we also have some of the oldest buildings in the city. So we're always looking for repairs with our bathrooms, AC, air conditioning in the public spaces, upgrades, and accessibility. And if you speak to our students and families, accessibility, we want elevators in our buildings. We want to make sure that our auditoriums and gymnasiums can provide access to all members of our community. I want to encourage everyone to come to our CEC meeting. We have a district leadership meeting this Thursday. These are open to the public, so you're always welcome to come to hear more. So this Thursday, it's our district leadership team meeting. On next week, we have our CEC meeting, and then we also have a winter wonderland. We are accepting toys. So if you have toys, ideally new, we would love and appreciate toys for our toy drive. I'm also excited to share with our community that we received a donor from Soul for Souls, where we are getting 1,000 new shoes and 2,000 new socks for our families. Particularly, we're prioritizing our families in temporary housing. And so we want to thank Bo Diaz and Soul for Souls for making this generous donation. And so that's what we are deeply committed to. I put my email and my phone number in the chat. Any family that's in need, whether it's social, emotional, academic, any kind of support that's needed, please reach out to me and I will connect our families with resources. And as we always say, if there's issues or concerns that are going on, we can only address them if we know about them. So please reach out to me. I really want to make sure that we serve everyone in our community to the best of our ability. And again, I just want to thank you, David. Thanks to the entire Community Board 11 family and for everyone in the audience. I wish I could be there in person. One of these days I'll get there. It's just that I always have so many meetings on different nights. But I can't wait to be in community with each and every single one of you. So thank you. And again, please reach out with any questions or concerns. And I apologize for my camera being off. It is like painful for me. So because you can't see my smile, you can't feel my energy. Hopefully you could feel it in my voice. But I really just have so much appreciation for all the members of our community. So thank you.
And we equally have that appreciation for you being here every month after month through COVID. So Dr. Christie, we appreciate you as well. We have quite a few presentations tonight. We also have a youth presentation. So we hope that you can stick around for that. You can see us, right? So that's good. That's important. We're here with our red shirts.
Yes, I'm going to stay on as long as possible. I can see you guys. You guys just can't see me. So just know I'm here.
It's okay. We know what you look like, Dr. Christie. So we'll continue. So, next we have, CEC4, Rosa Diaz, president for CEC4.
Yes, thank you.
Do you want to pull? up your
Yeah.
phone?
Well, a cute little presentation for people that may be visual, just like I am, with key dates to remember, including what the Christie just highlighted, our December 13 meeting. It's hybrid, in person and Zoom for whoever's not able to make it in person at Beaver is Elementary School. All are welcome to join us. We will have our presentation by the school construction authority by Mr. Joshua Adams, who is the community relationships manager. And also, this is just confirmed as of today, that's why it's not in the agenda, just in case. The school locking video system presentation by Mark Rappersa, who is the chief of safety and prevention from the office of the chancellor. Also, today, tomorrow, and Thursday, we are going to have the elementary school virtual fair. I put the link, not the link, I'm sorry. I put the information in there for whoever wants to join. If you have children in elementary, it would be great to join and see what our District 4 schools may have to offer for your children. The time is at 4 p.m. And also, parent leaders are going to have a Title I and SLT refresher on December 14 at 4:30 p.m. Again, the credentials are in the screen, so you guys can join, take a picture or something. We also having our Cafe con Christie on December 15 at 3 p.m. It's an open, safe space for everyone. Everyone is welcome. Dr. Christie answers as many questions as possible, and you just have an open discussion about anything and everything that has to do with East Harlem District 4 schools. She mentioned about the District 4 Winter Wonderland. Yes, we are accepting donations of beautiful toys, clothing, if you can. That's also appreciated. And I included the youth town hall at PS 72, December 15, from 5 to 7 in person. Everyone is welcome. Also, and lastly, Manhattan High School's President's Council monthly meeting is December 19 at 7 p.m. Please join if you can. Email me. The next slide is everyone's email, so you can take a screenshot and email your questions or even suggestions. This is a forum for high school superintendents to let us know and update us on what is going on around the high schools in all Manhattan. So we have like 7 high school superintendents that join. Also PTA presidents, executive board boys, they speak up as to what is happening in their school and what kind of support they need from our high school student boys, high school parent representative boys, and a lot more. If you see the next slide, it has district contacts and emails. The first one is my email, Dr. Christie's email, Nancy Pereira, who is a family leadership coordinator, and then Manhattan High School's President's Council, that's also my email. East Harlem Community Partnership, I want to also say thank you so much to them. They've helped us, they helped the school, they supported us with gift cards, with turkeys, with toys, with as much as they can help us. I do want to give a shout out to Carolina. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for our families in District 4. And that concludes my report. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Oh, down here. The Winter Wonderland is December 18th. You didn't say where.
Ooh, very good observation. Oops.
And that's,
PS7.
yeah,
PS7.
PS7.
PS007, which is located in 120th between 3rd and Lexington. that's the district's, office, superintendent's office.
It's a wonderful event. So, yeah, it's a wonderful. Any other questions? Yeah. Huh? I don't know. Yes.
I've also included, the district for, CEP meetings for, this month and the following months. For everyone's view. Just trying to keep it together.
So, question,
Yes,
sorry,
no,
I'm new on this board, right? So what is CEC? For those of us that don't know.
thank you so much. Thank you. I do appreciate the question. So CECs are community education councils. Each of the whole Manhattan has 6 districts. Lower East Side is District 1, and then coming up a little bit further is District 2, et cetera, et cetera. East Harlem is District 4, Washington Heights, District 5, and farther down Manhattan is District 6. So we are parents elected by PTA executive boards that vote for us and put us as, we are their voice. Oh, sorry, we are their voice, whatever concerns that happens in District 4, that has to do with education, mental support, schools, capital plan, repair, et cetera. We support them. We are public bodies mandated by state law. And that's like a little summary, but we do a lot. Thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry for the interruption. That concludes your report?
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Rosa. I would also just follow up and say, as Rosa mentioned, school construction authorities coming, that's often where we also support and look at what their recommendations are, in the district, and decide whether we will support those projects ourselves, or as we have in the past with elevators for schools, new windows, new air conditioning, electricity, and all the rest. As we continue on, do we have a representative from CEC 5?
I don't see.
I think,
Ms. Williams or-
since we've come back, we should just write a note that, Ms. Williams is not there anymore, right, Russell? She's not, so we should reach out to see if
Okay.
anybody.
All right, so we'll do that.
You did.
In full disclosure, I did reach out to Aisha Irvin. But I will continue to reach out, because I'm also missing a high school parent representative from District 5. Who's supposed to come to the Manhattan High School President's Council, and they have been MIA. So we need their voice. We're not gonna know what's going
For
on.
those that don't know, there's a small part of our community district, so we're broken up into Community Board 11, but we're Council District 8, and we're CEC 4 and CEC 5, but CEC 5 are just a few schools in our district, so we do want their presence here. They do service kids from this community, and again, we'll reach out to them to support it as well. But we should also attend their meeting and equal.
I do.
Okay, so then we have our representatives there, because I can't, I have a conflict that day. Do we have anybody from the district attorney's office present tonight for a presentation?
One has raised their hand.
Huh?
No one has raised their hand.
Yeah, since Marco, I gotta reach back out to Marco, he's working for DYCD now.
We do have a Sharima Harvell. She gets our emails, so we can reach out to her and ask.
So then we'll continue, we'll get right into the presentation, so it's without further ado, and with my pleasure and pride that I introduce the youth from the Keystone Club from the Children's Aid Society, Lexington Academy, that are having a town hall next Friday, and would like to do a short presentation about the work that we will conduct next week at the town hall. Mitch Caparosa, I've worked with for about 20 years now as East Harlem Center. Has been hired as our art teacher, but does arts and leadership and combines the two, and does wonderful work in helping youth identify things that they see in their community, identifying solutions to the challenges and problems that they're going to talk about. Loud and proud.
Yeah, guys, the mic and the camera for the virtual attendance is right here, so, look at everybody and this device as well.
Okay, I'll do it. Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, we'd like to begin by expressing our gratitude to all of you for allowing us to discuss important matters in regards to gun violence in our community of East Harlem. So we hope our topic is just as much of a priority for all of you as it is for us.
Well, my name is Amir, and this is Michael, Emily, Celine, and Brandon. And we're from East Harlem, like all of us here. And we're team leaders at Children's Aid, and we would like to inform you on a project we've been working on since May. When we got together with our peers to talk about an issue of gun violence and how growing up in a community where gunshots and news of killings feels like an accepted part of everyday life. That's just the way it is, most could say. Nothing you can do about it.
Firearms are the #1 cause of death among children and teens in the US. We dug deep into researching gun violence in Harlem in 2003 to 2023 and found over 43 incidents. Almost all victims were people 25 and under. Most of them were killed. Many of the shooters were around the same age. Two of the murdered teens had been members of children's aid sites, as was one of the shooters, who is now in prison for life. We're created on the Citizens app and get texts from friends 5 blocks away asking about police sirens and ambulance lights that look like they're heading towards Carfax.
We hear the shots and we hear the name and age of each victim. And we quote from the grieving loved ones. This one wanted to go to college, their father said. That one was a gifted ball player, cried her grandmother. The next one was always kind to everyone, making everyone laugh. We make her remembered. Is it too much to ask to grow up in a safe community where we're not afraid for the safety of our friends and family members, for ourselves? We don't think so.
After collecting information and data, we mapped out all of East Harlem's incidents we can find with bullet-shaped pins, so we can visualize what was happening and where. We have begun to create portraits of some of the people we lost due to gun violence, attempting to raise awareness about what's going on around us, to help people visualize the situation. And everyone talks about gun violence, but very few people are necessarily coming together to talk about how everyone feels. And that's where we come in.
So we're all planning a teen town hall next Friday, where we're gonna change thoughts and ideas. We're gonna have guests and different panelists. What we're trying to do is find more. We're trying to find more about how gun violence is affected the people in the community. And we want to try to brainstorm solutions and ideas. A quote that I want to share from Representative John Lewis is that never ever be afraid to make some noise and get into good trouble, necessary trouble.
Okay, so we hope you can all spread the word about our event, take flyers, and we encourage both youth and adults from all over the city to take a short survey with the QR code on the bottom right-hand corner. And we'll have a panel of speakers, Q&A sessions, and refreshments for all. And interesting and meaningful discussions are on the agenda, so we hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Yes, Ms. Snow.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. After you gather the surveys and hear everybody's feedback at the forum that you're having, what is your next steps after that to continue the conversation?
One more time, sorry.
Once you get the feedback from the surveys and you get the feedback from from everybody at the forum, what is the next steps to continue the conversation?
Okay.
It's funny because actually,
You wanna, I think one of the motivations one of the things that we're advocating for is State Senator Serrano's bill number S803,
Okay,
which bans selling child operated firearms without child protection mechanism design. And another state bill by Senator Bailey, 4598, which provides funding for anti-violence programs in schools. So with the awareness that we're trying to bring up, we're also trying to advocate for change. And that change can be specifically through this legislation that we're gonna advocate for.
and then my second follow-up question is if you have legislation, when are you going to go to Albany and how many people or you want the community from the youth to be able to go to Albany for you to advocate for these two bills?
Well, that's a great idea.
Okay, let me know, I can help.
We actually haven't gotten a lot past
Okay.
December 15th yet,
Okay.
but we have invited all those, people in the policy department and Film Data have been helping us out. And a couple of three people went, so we all went to DC.
Okay.
And Asher Rodriguez, as the vice chair, was also with them. They went
Right.
during the summer.
Okay.
Right, so we went up to Capitol Hill, and I mean, these bills, we couldn't have done anything
Yeah.
about there, we would have to go to Albany, but we did tell everybody that we spoke to.
Okay.
And Serrano is backing one of those bills, so. And so, but I think a bus trip would be,
Yeah, let me know. I will do a bus trip with you guys and take you to Albany on the day that you're off. Albany opens January 3rd all the way to June. It would be my pleasure, because that's what I do.
Wow, that's
So
very
Ms.
cool.
Mapp is one of the district leaders.
Yeah.
I see that. Okay, great,
And there's a lot of other wonderful things with youth that,
yes,
Men's Girl Scouts as well, and then.
and yes, that's what.
Yeah.
I didn't know if any of you, I looked up the map of District 29, Senate District,
Yeah.
and it's
It's weird.
upside down, but it
Yeah.
is a rifle and a shotgun,
Yep.
the shape of the district.
When you actually see the map of it,
Just Google map of District 29, I looked at it, I'm like, this can't be real.
it's horrifying.
Yeah, that's
It's
crazy.
bizarre, it's like
Okay.
really bizarre.
I'm excited.
You know, one of the other things that we talked about is, as the staff in preparing this was, okay, we always do these events, right? So
Yeah.
what is next for us?
Yeah.
And what are those next steps? And how do we then follow up maybe in January with what next steps are? Again, it's very easy to talk about what problems are, right? And to a degree, when we finally do talk about solutions, then how do we then go about implementing them and bringing that attention
Yeah.
across?
Yeah.
And as we know, this is, we've had peace marches in this community where kids don't feel safe marching in their own community, right? Which is a horrifying kind of thought, that within a 10, 20 block radius, you're not comfortable being in your own.
Yeah.
For you.
Right.
So, please, everybody, if you can attend, we have a question.
Asher has their hand raised.
Asher, yes, Asher's gonna probably correct me also.
Asher, go ahead. You have, should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, I'm sorry for the background noise. I'm at my band concert. I'm in the dressing room. I just wanted to highlight that they also received a Project of Excellence Award at that thing in DC at the advocacy event. So I wasn't sure if they mentioned it. So, yeah, I'm proud of them.
Yeah, your smile was the biggest of the group. So again, if you are able to attend or, other youth groups, again, we want to have other youth groups in the community attend. Those politicians, you see them, nudge them a little bit so that they are in that space.
We're gonna have petitions there for these two bills.
Okay.
So there's going to be both a paper petition being passed around. And a QR code for virtual petition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you again to the committee. Are there any more questions? We'll just continue, because I know we're.
Yeah, it's up to you. There is an attendee with a hand raised.
Yeah.
Okay. Jane Lindbergh, you should be able to speak. Go ahead.
I'm just very pleased to be listening to this. I'm a very first meeting, and I didn't realize that I raised my hand. So thank you all very much, and carry on.
Well, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you will continue to attend meetings with both the youth and education, but other committees as well. So then in moving forward, we have The New York Academy of Medicine, they've been trying to get into the agenda for a couple of months, and we were finally able to work out. Their published experience on intergenerational action, adolescent childhood team, the IAACT Coalition. Do we have a presentation here?
There should be, virtually, we should have Jacqueline Wallace.
Yeah,
Jack-
would it be possible for me to share the screen? Is that okay?
Of course, excuse me, can any of you?
Yes.
Yes,
Well-
1 second, Jacqueline, yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's just not enabled yet.
Okay, go ahead, you should be able to.
Great. And I'm also presenting with Olivia. Olivia, are you able to
Yes.
join? Perfect.
Yes. Yeah, so me and Jackie will be presenting on youth advisory councils and the role of youth in violence and firearm injury prevention.
See how these things tie right into one?
Yeah, I
another?
was just gonna, I wanted, when we got to some of the slides, I was gonna say, you guys really led in perfectly to the work
Yeah.
here. There's a lot of ties, so.
And we would love for you to attend our event next Friday. See, we all in unity here with our church, so.
Great, love it.
Okay. So just to begin, some of this work that we've been doing, some of the background research, we were looking at the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. So specifically Articles 43 to 54 are focusing on how adults and governments need to work together to make sure that all children can enjoy their rights. But within that, there's no specific mention of gun violence in general, gun violence prevention. So this is just something to take note of. Obviously, we all know that that's crucial in terms of youth rights and protection. So that's just a little bit of background to some of the work. And throughout the presentation, we're going to talk about the research that's been done, focusing on youth engagement and participation, and a little bit about some development ideas we've had about a youth advisory council, and would love to have a discussion with you all about what the best method for engaging youth and involving them in every step of the research process may be. And just wanted to take note and let everybody know, like, this came from an initial collaboration between the New York Academy of Medicine, Dr. Laura Carina, who is not here tonight, and the Heritage School and their principal, Sue Grimm, and then additional partners that came into this: Counseling in Schools, UNICEF USA, the Department of Epi at the Mailman School of Public Health, and the Injury Center at Columbia University, and Mount Sinai School of Medicine. So just a little overview, and we're going to go into this more in the next slides. Jackie's going to delve into it further, but so this started, so we have 2022 participation in the Injury-Free Coalition for Kids Conference. And then throughout the two research papers that we'll be talking about, we have year 1 and year 2, which, as I mentioned, Jackie's going to go into in the next slides. And then beginning in 2023, we started exploring work with the Youth Advisory Council as a part of NIAM and, you know, within the Columbia Center for Injury Prevention work.
Great. So before we dive into the research results, I just want to explain how we conducted this research. We did it through a methodology called participatory action research. For those who haven't heard of this, basically the way I like to explain it is it flips research on its head. So the topic that we wanted to look at was gun violence and gun violence in East Harlem. So as an example of this, I am a medical student from Boston, right? This is not the community, this is not my community experience. And so typically research might be, I might study this topic, but I'm not actually from there. I'm not being impacted there. And so what participatory action research does is it flips that. It's, we want everybody who's in that room wearing orange who said, you know, we're impacted by gun violence. We want you guys involved in the research that's being done every step of the way. And so here's a sample definition of what YPAR is. It's a form of participatory action research that provides youth with the opportunities to study the social problems affecting their lives and to determine the actions to solve these problems. It's really equity focused. It's about power sharing. We want to share skills. We want to build alliances. So it sounds like it's really relates to what everybody in that room is doing. And one thing that's important when we talk about participatory action research is to be transparent about what we mean by participation, because we don't want to claim we're participating if we just maybe involve you in one step of it. And so here, what I've delineated is I've used a tool that was developed by another researcher that outlines the stages of research here on the left. And then you can see the different ways you might involve a participant. They could be not involved at all at that stage. They could be consulted, collaborated with, or they themselves could do the work. So in our case, and we'll talk more in depth, we partnered with high schoolers from the Heritage School in East Harlem. And we had this whole collaboration that Olivia talked about. It involved a bunch of grad students, it involved physicians, it involved public health researchers, and it involved these students. And they helped us from the jump. They were collaborating with us on the research question, the methodology, how we wanted to do the study. They were consulted on how we collected the data. I did the analysis, so we didn't involve them in that stage, but we did then have them produce a report, which some of you may remember. If you joined a community board meeting last December, 3 of the students from the second year actually presented our very initial data on it, and they did that all themselves. So starting with year 1, we have sort of 2 years of this process, and it started during the pandemic, which I think really impacted year 1, and which I'll talk about. So up in the left here, you can see that we've now have the results published. We want to make sure you guys have access to this so we can send the paper or the link to anyone who's interested. I wanted to give a shout out to Moshe, who is one of the student co-researchers, and they did enough and wanted to be involved enough to actually get authorship on the paper, which I think is really important. So again, this was a collaboration between the Heritage School. Really, I want to do a shout out to the principal who was highly involved in making this happen. And the New York Academy of Medicine. The reason for this partnership is that the Heritage School has been impacted by gun violence. They've lost students to gun violence. And as you guys were just talking about, gun violence is a big issue in East Harlem. And that's what we wanted to look into. We wanted to, the goal of our study was to have youth participate in the design and implementation of a project set within a child rights framework to better understand youth's perception of safety in their school and their community. What do I mean by child rights framework? It's this idea that all youth, without discrimination, must have access and must have the opportunity to represent themselves, tell their stories, and gain access to vital information to promote positive change. So you can see it really melds nicely with the participatory action research framework. How did we do this? The students and researchers decided to use 2 surveys that already existed and were validated and to modify them. And by modify them, I mean the high school students decided, okay, this question is not relevant for our community, or this question uses a really strange word. None of my peers are going to know what that means. So they tweaked the language and they selected which questions were relevant to what they thought was important. For the initial results, year 1 was during the worst part of the pandemic. And so school was just shifting to Zoom. So we had much fewer responses than we were expecting, but it was still useful to use as a pilot. And so we saw, even just with those 54 responses, important differences in the perceptions of safety depending on gender, self-identified gender, and depending on if students had witnessed gun violence. Just as an example, this is just like a single statistic. Half of females say that they feel safe from bullying compared to 76% of males. There were also some differences based off of race and ethnicity, with fewer Latinx students reporting feeling that security guards in their community keep them safe. And importantly, over 1/3 of the students had personally witnessed gun violence. Sorry, the GV is gun violence. I should have written that out. And of those students, none of them reported that they trust police officers to keep them safe. And interestingly, they were also more likely to be involved. They were 2.4 times more likely to learn about political issues. So I just pulled a few stats, but the stats are kind of more interesting from year 2, which I'll talk about later. What I did want to mention is we also had focus groups. So 30 of the students actually stayed with us to discuss their feelings on the questions they were asked. And many reported like a big major issue was transportation and feeling safe going from point A to point B. They might feel safe at home, they might feel safe at school, but they do not feel safe waiting for the train or even walking outside in their apartment complex or going to the local bodega. There was also in the discussion group a lot of emphasis that the female youth felt that sexual harassment was a major problem. They mentioned this sort of pervasive smell of drugs in the air, and that mental health was a huge concern, especially as it related to COVID-19. So with year 2, we built on that work. So for those of you who were here last year, you might remember these faces. Those were the student co-researchers who presented the very initial data. And with this study, we wanted to delve into what really is going on with the relationship between gun violence, self-identified gender, and how that impacts how students perceive safety, how safe they are. This time we got 153 survey responses, and so we're able to do a little bit more in-depth data analysis, which I'll share now. So in terms of gender, I'm just pulling out a couple interesting facts. The paper, if you check it out, has a lot, dives more in depth. Females were 3.3 times as likely to report that genders are never treated equally and never given equal opportunities. The p-value here just means that it's significant. The percentages go for like percentages of females versus males. Female students were also more than twice as likely to report that local transportation waiting areas are never safe. So over 1/3 of female students feel it is never safe to wait in transportation areas. They might feel safe on the train, but not while waiting for it. 1/3 of female students report never feeling safe from sexual harassment in public spaces, compared to only 10% of males feeling similar, though I still think 10% is 10% too high. Only 32% of females versus 50% of males feel there's an adult they can speak freely to about abuse or violence. So females feel like they're enduring and less safe and have fewer adults to talk to. It impacts their perception of safety in the community. 11% of the female students say there's never a safe place to play in East Harlem. And almost half of them report that their mental health is poor most of the time or always. So those are just some facts that some survey results as it pertains to gender. And now I'll talk about gun violence, which again really builds off what you guys were just talking about. Again, this year, more than 1/3 of the students reported having personally witnessed gun violence. And as you might expect, that dramatically impacts how safe they feel both in their community and at school. In the community, students who witnessed gun violence were 4.6 times more likely to report never feeling safe from violence. Here you can see a confidence interval. All you really sort of need to know about a confidence interval is if it includes 1, it means that it's not significant. But if it does not include 1, that means that it's significant. So this is a significant result. The odds that a student never felt safe from sexual harassment were also impacted by whether they'd witnessed gun violence. And again, their perception of whether they're safe in those transportation areas, they feel less safe than students who had never witnessed gun violence. Not everything was different in terms of safety in the community, but I wanted to pull out some of the stats that were. There were also some dramatic data as it reports in terms of like how safe people feel at school. 30% of the students who witnessed gun violence reported not attending school because they felt they would be unsafe. That's a huge issue. Students are missing out on learning because they feel unsafe. Fewer students reported they felt security guards kept them safe. So if they witness gun violence, they're not feeling like they're getting the protection at school. They also had more than twice the odds of self-reporting that they carry a weapon to school. So you can see, sorry, I went too quickly. So you can see like this data here, I think really this slide in particular may relate to what you guys are talking about, and hopefully I'll learn more next week or when your presentation is.
Yeah, so after these 2 years and these papers is where I came in and started doing work, and what I've been doing for the past 6 months and throughout the rest of this year is really we're in a developmental stage and just really like cultivating ideas for youth engagement and research and a potential youth advisory council. So obviously we want this to be a youth-driven agenda, and we'll go into, I have an example moving forward of a framework that we've looked at, but so far it's been looking at a lot of different, so through literature reviews and looking at youth involvement in research and youth advisory councils in other issues, but there's not a lot, at least in the research, about with like this specific issue with gun violence prevention and injury prevention. So this is something we're looking into, obviously looking at the relationship and how it can be beneficial for both researchers and the youth involved, and just even involving youth. And so I've worked with the Columbia Injury Center, and so involving youth who are interested in not only doing this research, but in getting involved in seminar series and lectures that the Injury Center is offering, and really involving them in the work as much as possible. And as I've talked about, and so did Jackie, we're looking at this in the framework of, children's rights perspective, UNICEF, USA involved. And yeah, so in terms of a structure of youth advisory councils, we're looking at these frameworks, and as I mentioned, the benefits to the youth that are involved. So you have, more tangible things such as paid compensation, making sure that they're being paid for their time and the work, which is going to be very valuable. And as well as helping them with leadership, getting involved in work like this can help, if they're interested in this, moving them forward in the field and in the future with that. And yeah, we really just want to, as I mentioned before, this is still very much in the developmental stages. We're playing around with these ideas, seeing if this is something that would make sense, for there to be youth advisory council doing work with places such as the Columbia Injury Center. And that's really where we want to have a discussion with you all and, see if this is something that people would be interested in, that would be beneficial. Yeah. And then this is just like a framework that we've been looking at. So, looking at developmental steps and kind of going through and adjusting things about, what could be a better way to go about things. So, for example, instead of looking at how, this shows how can we use the expertise of youth, shifting that to how do we partner with youth? It's not that we're using their ideas, but really partnering with them and involving them in the process. The lit review is something that's being done now, an examination of other youth advisory councils and models in other topics. And then moving on to consulting with key informants, so people involved with previous research, as well as, like research is involved, but same with, any youth and students who have been involved, and creating recruitment plans, looking at, organizations that may have connections to different schools and youth groups. And yeah, so the hope is to eventually implement this youth advisory council and bring youth in as partners and co-researchers.
Well, we're always welcome to public members as part of the Youth and Education Committee. So, you're free to join and to attend meetings as well. We do look to encourage and support young people becoming on the community board. Now, as of age 16, you can officially join as a member, and we've had several youth join at 16, but they've now aged up and are no longer teens. So we do need to do some additional recruiting. The young people that presented in the spring were wonderful. We would love to have them. And part of our goal in the Youth and Education Committee, one is to be increased youth participation, because if we're partially representing youth here, we should have youth at the table. And again, I would encourage you to attend CEC meetings and make those connections. It's one thing to go out and say, we want youth participation, but sometimes you need to be in that space with youth before you ask of anything from them. And then they'll be more inclined to be there to give you the space you need, as opposed to just coming in when you need something, as opposed to themselves. So, that's just a little words of wisdom. Young people, if you invest in them, they invest back in themselves. Rosa has a question.
I have a question. Maybe you answer it and maybe I wasn't paying attention. I apologize in advance. But how long was the survey out for? You were referring to community. Which community was surveyed, and what was the age, the range of students' age that were surveyed?
So we did it two different methods. Both times the survey population consisted of the high school students at the Heritage School. so like 14 to 18. The first year, because of the pandemic, we did it through, they were having Zoom advisory sessions. And so anytime a student attended an advisory session for a given week, that advisory session was used to give the students time to complete the survey. So that was the year one methodology. Year two, we still used the advisory classes as a way to sort of get students to participate, but this time it was a link that was available to be completed at any time throughout the week. And so some students might have completed it during that advisory sessions, others may have completed it outside, but it was available to all of the students at the Heritage School.
So if I'm just clarifying, this survey, this data was only a result of the Heritage School students completing the survey, not the school community.
Correct. And part of what we want to do is sort of, we wanted to use this as kind of a pilot. And one of our questions for you guys was, we were curious about ways that we might be able to replicate this work throughout the city, whether you guys have connections to other community boards, or you recommend that we go to them, which it sounds like was a previous recommendation, to sort of see who would be interested in expanding or replicating the work. Because as you're pointing out, this is a very small data set.
Yeah, I would say, exactly, that's kind of what, Ms. Matt kind of indicated, what are the next steps with all this? So after we gather all this information, we have these forums, different groups. Now what do we do and come together? And I think, every time there's a mass killing, right, or a mass shooting, and although in New York, we don't necessarily have mass shootings, we have massive of shootings. Right. And so we still experience the loss in the community. And it's like, we go through this mourning period, we go through this little active period, and then we go through the cycle again with little being done. And I'm not being critical of anybody here. This is a much more systemic and societal issue in our nation than an individual one in East Harlem. But the young people that live in East Harlem are witnessing this. And when I think it was like 38%, I mean, you're talking about close to 40% of our youth are experiencing directly gun violence, and the other 60% that may not be witnessing it are witnessing their peers experiencing and going through that loss. And as Michael said, we hear about the quotes, we hear about this, we hear about how great this kid was, a star and had potential. Yet we've done little as a society to change it. What are the next steps?
That was, it sounds like you guys have some policies you're advocating for, which I sort of think of as like bigger fish to fry, but I also think there may be lower hanging fruit. Like so many of the students we surveyed and talked to, a big concern was the transportation waiting areas. And the fact that the survey also showed that these students don't feel police are protecting them, then the city's response of just putting police into like all of these transportation areas is probably not actually meeting the need, at least of this group of students. And so maybe low hanging fruit is like better lighting or various, I don't know if anyone in the room sort of feels like there are some more tangible action items that we could do as a community. But that was one of my questions for you guys.
We need to come together more, find ways to work together and not in silos.
Right, and there's two different things. There's addressing root causes, and then there's addressing problems like just being afraid to stand, and adults maybe in bus stop. I think they're two different things. We're all in this together.
Oh, and also, I wanna also just put it out there. The citywide council on high schools represents 350,000 kids that are high schooler in all the boroughs. So that will be a space to also present this, to also collect data and see how you guys can come up to like a more productive solution, to this.
What was the name of that one more time? Just so I can write it down.
It's okay, citywide council on high schools.
Great.
I can definitely connect you. If you give me an email, I'll email it to you right now.
Great, I'll put that in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would also say, you know, maybe do a presentation at the CEC meeting as well. We go get parents and, you know, majority of elementary and middle school parents. And although we only have one high school that's part of District 4 under the superintendents, there are other charter high schools and other high schools in the community as well that, you know, we should support and help you reach out to.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for giving us the opportunity to attend and to sort of share and circle back these results, both last year with the students and this year with sort of more finalized results. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you all. Really helpful.
And if there's any, I didn't mean to cut anyone off, if there were any more comments or questions.
Oh, we have to kind of move through the agenda because we have 4 presentations tonight. We try to limit it to 2. And we run a long meeting anyway, so we just want to keep. But again, I want to just say that, you know, it was interesting that all these particular topics are overlapping today. And that, you know, again, this should just be the beginning of a larger discussion we have centered around safety of youth in the community and safety of residents in the community. Because I'm sure there are other people and adults that are equally afraid of bus stops and walking through their community. Thank you, Midge. Thank you,
everybody.
I'll see y'all tomorrow.
The night of the event is National Bill of Rights.
And also, December 15th is National Bill of Rights Day. So as the youth presented, we need to be out there advocating, sign a petition. If you don't make it, reach out and we'll get you a petition to sign and maybe have others sign it as well. So in continuing to move forward, next we have amplifying our impact in East Harlem, forming a coalition with New York Junior League. We have Stan Harbor and Union Settlement. Are they in there? Oh, okay, well, please, wherever you feel most comfortable, but you know.
Hi, my name is Paris Hawkins, and I'm excited to be here speaking with you today on behalf of New York Junior League. I'm a vice chair of the Social Equity Committee. Our organization's president, Sarah Ekin, wishes she could be here, but she had unavoidable conflict. We do have other members of the organization joining us tonight. So good to the agenda, please. So tonight I'm going to provide a high-level overview of the New York Junior League and highlight some of our work with community organizations in East Harlem. However, my main goal tonight is to hear from you. So as we look to build off of our work with organizations around and expand to new organizations, I'd like to hear from you how you think we could add the most value and which we should keep in mind as we build impactful relationships. Next slide.
Oh, did I go?
I think.
Sorry.
Yes. So for background, the New York Junior League was established in 1901, and it's an organization of women whose mission is to advance women's leadership for meaningful community impact. We currently have about 2,400 volunteers. Given our large size, I won't go through the entire structure, but I do want to highlight some of the committees and councils specifically focused on civic engagement and community partnerships. So since its founding, the New York Junior League has pushed for legislative change for the betterment of women and children in New York City and the state through its Advocates for Public Policy Committee. So through the efforts of this committee, we've spurred legislation tackling issues such as domestic violence, protection for children against child abuse, mental health insurance coverage, anti-stalking and human trafficking. The Community Advisory Council's purpose is to inform the New York Junior League leadership about community issues and needs, and their feedback helps guide the league's community programming. And external stakeholders, you know, representatives from city government or nonprofits also sit on this council. My committee, the Social Equity Committee, develops policy and programs through research, training, and engagement related to social justice change. Through our education initiatives, policy priorities, and collaboration, we can also help shape the direction of the league's community impact. And then we work with over 60 community partners, and the committees that engage these partners fall under the Community Council, which focuses on 4 areas: adult education and mentoring, child health and welfare, children's education, culture, and the arts, and city impact. So the reason I'm here today is because in fall 2022, the junior league decided to align the social equity committee's work with the specific neighborhood that it serves. So East Harlem and Community Board 11 were identified as neighborhood board of interest. And last year we researched 2 community partners, Scan Harbor and Community Settlement, to understand, along with Community Board 11, some of the commonalities between these organizations and the New York Junior League, and to try to identify ways where we could add that. So this year, our goal is to present to this committee and then work with the community board to develop a partnership strategy. And then going forward, we want to execute on the strategy with regular check-ins. We want to evaluate what we do well, what we do better, and then expand that approach to other community boards. So one of our partners, Scale Harbor, serves high-risk youth and their families in Harlem and the South Bronx. And they've been a community partner since 2003. We have 5 programs with them, and there are over 100 volunteers that work with these initiatives. So just an example of Girls Leadership Institute provides healthy workshops on topics such as gratitude, friendship, and teamwork to inspire.
I'm sorry.
Just one more.
It blocks everything, you know?
Just one more back, please.
Oh, my bad. There you
No
go.
problem. So covers topics such as gratitude, friendship, and teamwork that inspires young girls to see themselves as confident leaders and future change makers. And Reading Rangers sends book home with students at the beach workshop to help them start their own libraries at home. And oftentimes students want to stay longer after session.
So you come into the after school programs or the school programs?
Yes, the
Yeah.
committee will have session. Next slide, please. Union Settlement creates opportunity in East Harlem by offering comprehensive programs to help underserved residents improve their skills and build better lives for themselves and their families. And they've been a community partner since 1908. Today, we engage them through our personal advancement leadership committee, which has about 25 volunteers. And this committee aims to expose high school girls to different career options through interactive workshops, offsite outings in New York, and a keynote career day event offering resources and networking opportunities. And last year's event had 80 attendees. So there are a couple ways that an organization can get involved in the New York Junior League. One is to apply to become a community partner. So community partners are New York City-based organizations that work hand in hand with the New York Junior League volunteers for ongoing programs and for one-off projects. And then organizations can also apply for a community improvement project. And for these projects, we will provide a team of trained volunteers to help complete the project, assist with funding support, and in-kind service capital. And so for this kind of work, it's kind of like renovation, so painting interiors, installing furniture, and more information can be found on the website.
So schools or CBOs can apply through this process?
And with applications normally go in some time.
Did everybody get the link?
You'll send
Well,
them.
we have the
So
presentation.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
a presentation, and so they can find it on the website.
You're good?
And I think any additional questions can go to community@nyjl.org. So I kind of walk through the New York Junior League and some of our work, but really want to hear from you. So open to any feedback, but what I'm hoping to understand is, what are some of the issues that will become increasingly important over the next few years? I've heard a lot about gun violence tonight. What are some organizations that, are doing great work in the community that can be able to buy their impact by access to equipment and volunteers? And as I said, we're interested in meaningful community impact. So how would you define a successful partnership? And if I had to do a presentation next year, what would you like to hear to know that feedback has really been incorporated and we're making progress? Thank you.
Thank you. So are there questions?
So if I'm hearing correctly, New York Junior League is like the backbone of Scan Harbor and Union Settlement?
So we're a separate organization, and we have partnerships with those organizations to develop programming with them.
So they come in,
Separate, yeah.
work with a group of girls. I have 5 daughters. Work with a group of girls and they go through maybe a project-based learning, evidence-based program, activity. And then there's also opportunities to apply for capital projects, small kinds of projects as well, right?
Like a mentorship, you train them, you mentor them, you teach them, and then they have their own program in the community.
No, they do the program. So they'll come
You
to my
guys run the
after-school
program.
program. So I run an after-school program, the Children's Aid Society.
Because
You know,
Union Cinnamon
I'm
is huge, that's what I'm saying, Union Cinnamon is huge.
Right, so they go into maybe one of the after-school programs. And we'll work, well, I think they had a high school program with girls, right?
Yeah, so we'll
Was-
work with
yeah.
the organization to develop a program and, provide volunteers to work on a program.
You provide support,
Yes.
Okay.
funding support or manpower support, et cetera, so forth like that.
So let's say you want to do a thing, girl circle, and have a group of girls, and they would be mentors such as them coming in. And they would sit with the girls and discuss certain topics, evidence-based groups, do activities together. Maybe form a little bus trip up to Albany and choose. Right? You know, again, I mean, we always have to look at what are the threads that join us in our community, right? And again, those of us that run and work in nonprofits do not have enough resources.
Yeah.
And we definitely always need people that are willing to give time of themselves to expose kids to new and, and sometimes, the relationship, sometimes you don't know what forms in the body of a group and relationships of what somebody may spark in you to help you elevate and achieve your goals or even identify those other things.
No, I wanted to, let you speak, I didn't want to interrupt. So if I'm getting it correctly, right, so you might be able to help PAPTAs to do some type of program in support of the high school students, right? Some type of.
I think so.
Give a little.
Yeah. It's nice to meet everyone. I'm actually I just moved to Pleasant Avenue in August, so this is my first CB11M meeting, so really happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you. And so yes, to the question, so I think there is a bit of a process when it comes to becoming a long-term community partner, just because we evaluate those applications kind of on an annual basis. So the best thing is, to reach out you can scan the link and we'll send it out, of course. And that is evaluated every year. Now, the way a lot of our community partners come on board is we have entire committees that is called Done in a Day. It's a very large committee. And so, and actually other volunteers throughout the entire organization, like Kira's mentioned, 2,400 volunteers will come and help with one-off opportunities. So maybe, just for example, I know there's certain like food banks that will do it Done in a Day, or if it's like a holiday, there's like a, giving a tree, whatever it might be. That's not always the case. We certainly have had community partners come in, as permanent kind of or
Right.
kind of ongoing year-round.
1908,
Development, right, of course. But a lot of our partners do come in through that kind of Done in a Day process. It's kind of a great way for us to get to know you, get to know the organizations, get to kind of understand, again, like the best way. And I'll just be very frank, so my role in the organization as I oversee social equity, actually oversee our advocates for public policy committee, which we actually take our grown-up volunteers up to Albany. But I'd love to chat with you about your experience. But I used to be on community side. And so one challenge I'm sure everyone in this room has seen is since COVID, it has been a challenge. Our community, our volunteers are really want to show up and, be a part, but we've had some of our community partners where maybe there's been turnover internally with the actual, the staff on program, things like that. So I think we're really at a point right now where we're trying to bring on new community partners. And Karis also mentioned the Community Advocacy Council. That's something we're really trying to build. We really do want to bring in individuals who are community organizers, just leaders in different ways to be able to have that discussion, again, to create this, I think, ongoing discussion. One other project I did want to mention, and I really just thought about this tonight, and I should mention, so if anyone's been to Thomas Jefferson Park, you may have actually seen the trash bins that say in Montreal. So that we also, in addition to the CIP, which that the community improvement project, like Kira's mentioned, that, schools or organizations can apply for funding for, painting and things like that. We also, every year, the Junior League has a playground improvement project. So this past year was at Marcus Garvey Park. It's been in different parks throughout the city. And so that's just another ongoing. So Thomas Jefferson, I think oh gosh, maybe it was 2018. I don't remember the year, but I know it's in the past decade. So that's another, just an ongoing partnership that we offer every year to different parks to kind of help, with.
Right, so while you were speaking, my brain was
Oh,
blown
sorry.
off. No, because of all the information
Yeah.
that you just gave me,
Yeah.
that is giving me a lot of ideas how to support 121 high schools in all Manhattan. A lot of community schools have different needs in their communities. So I would love to, connect and see how you can support those specific schools and
I get you in a second, Raj, just, one of the things also, you mentioned small capital projects, so like next week, they mentioned the School Construction Authority is gonna present at the CEC. Now, what's very interesting, the district will come up from the all the principals have their list of priorities, right? Then the superintendent kind of has theirs and putting together. And then the School Construction Authority looks at it a little differently, and then they have their own set of priorities. And sometimes those little projects in school that is not a priority for the School Construction Authority may fall very well into kind of this, redecorating a room, or and coming in and doing a project for a day and going out. I used to have, volunteers paint the East Harlem Center all the time. Sometimes it's more cleaning up after the painting. Other question, yes, Christine, and then,
It's Rosemary.
Russell, yes.
Do you also volunteer with smaller groups who might not be 501c3? Or do you have to be a 501c3 to partner with you?
I believe it must, I would reach out to the community, so we're on the advocacy side of things, so it's social action side, so I would reach out and see. I think the only reason we ourselves are 501c3, and because of that, there's, a lot of annual reporting and things like that, as I'm sure you know, so, but definitely please reach out and we can, I'm sure that, be happy to, take a look and see, maybe it is one of the, maybe if it's a one-off project, I'm sorry, I'm not 100% sure.
Well, it's very important to recognize that in our community, there are a lot of small church groups that also do programming and serve kids in after school and in non-traditional after school programming that do not get DYCD or city funding, but still are a valuable resource to families, and may benefit from the work as well. Thank you, Christine. I want to go to Russell next because I skipped over.
You had said, thank you for showing up. Thank you for the presentation. So you had said it's an annual process, lengthy process.
I would say, it's an annual process of, kind of rolling. So we actually kind of operate on school year. We really operate September through May. We do a ton of programming actually over the summer, traditionally. So I would say this is actually probably a great time to, if you have a program for the coming school year to, connect. With the one-off opportunities, that's more of a, I think can be evaluated probably more rolling.
All right, just let me ask all my questions then. All right, so you have a process, you do it annually. You're in East Harlem. How many new partners are you looking for? How many young people you want to engage or recruit? When, what type of cycles that you're working on? Because you said a lot of information, a lot of things, and it's like, unless you have unlimited resources, you gotta be able to scale it down and say, what are we really looking for? You got major institutions that you're working with. Scan, and so Union Settlement. So what are you really looking for when you present here? Who are you looking for? How many young people? Are we all talking about exclusively girls?
Always needing more than ever.
No, we just talking about what you're looking for.
Not exclusively, like you do have some programs that align with, serving young girls, but, serve all children and, other, education services.
So once we respond, when does that process begin? When will they be selected, identified, and when does programming and all that stuff, when will that begin?
So I think those conversations probably have to go through the community council, right?
Or we could ask somebody from that department to come next month or the month after to answer those. Because I think, again, this is a valuable resource that both traditional in-school CBOs, you've already identified two that are staple CBOs in our community and that primarily serve East Harlem and the South Bronx as their smaller constituents.
Yes, we also have a list of resources that are local to East Harlem that are targeted for you. So I'd be happy to forward that to you as well, because one of your questions is you're asking us, like, what are the organizations in the local area? So we can definitely provide a list and recommendations. And then same with the annual process that you all have. We have our annual statement of needs budgeting process where we try to assess the needs of the youth and education related sectors for this community. So it'd be great if you guys could participate in that. We're expecting to get responses from OMB in January, the new year. And we should be responding to those responses. So if you guys can be a part of that conversation as well.
Not to belabor this, what about unattached young people? Because oftentimes, if the services are good and young people are not attached to other programs, could Community 4011, could it be a catch basin instead of referring them? But how would they fit if they're not an organization?
I think that's a great question. To date, we have not done unattached programming. Now, I will say, actually, one thing that kind of came to mind is actually another program of the committee that Karis helps co-lead, our social equity committee. Last year, we launched a take office program that was actually geared towards high school girls to help train them to learn more about advocacy and, potentially, becoming involved in office in the future. And last year when we had that program, it was actually just directly through, I believe Scan Harbor and another Rising Ground, another partner of ours. But I do think it's something for us to kind of go back and discuss. I think that's the sort of program that could be interesting to kind of open up to any girl, any young lady, high school age girl. I think I think we maybe have a few one-off programs. I don't know just the nature of our organization. Obviously, we have always worked with, partner organizations, but I think it's a really important question for sure.
But I think that goes like what Christine is saying, is they're non-traditional, like we have other organizations such as SAVE that do really work around the youth violence in this community as well. Youth Build, which we also have, which serves like young adolescents or older adolescents, so what age do y'all kind of generally go through with the program?
To be honest with you, all ages. I would say when it comes back, I think back to the question about girls, I would say under 12, we're pretty, mixed gender. And then I would say kind of middle school and up. And we do actually, so one of our councils is adult education and mentoring. And so we do have a number of committees on that council that work with young adults that are, maybe 18 to 24, 25. I would say for the most part, it is I think with very few exceptions, over the age of 13 is going to be working with, young women, just because all of our volunteers are women, and just, by nature, when it comes to the mentoring sort of things, of course. I mean, obviously, like when it comes to like a one-off project, that's very different, but I think just from the standpoint of our volunteers are women, so generally kind of middle school, and that tends to be girls.
Yes.
How would an interested partner apply for the one-off opportunities?
The same, actually, maybe you wanna go back to the.
Do with the link.
Yeah. So this first one actually.
Oh, I see that there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks so much for having us, and feel free
And
to.
come back and attend some of the, you can attend Zoom so you can listen and do other things and double task. But at least hear, what's going on in the community as well, as you're looking to partner, I think you've chosen two good agencies to work with.
Yeah, we definitely wanna continue the conversations there, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll continue to move on. I know it's been a long evening with many different things, but next we have, and following up with some of my vision for work with the committee is inclusive of schools, and we've done a lot of work recently in the last few years with the DOE district for CC for schools. However, we do not want to leave out our other partners. Those that do know, charter schools are public schools. They do serve a large population in our community. We do have our new principal from New Capital Prep Charter School, Ms. LaQuana Alexander, Principal Alexander, who I do know. So with disclosure, our children my wife worked with LaQuana for many years. Our children have attended parties together and whatnot and what so. So LaQuana, I turn it over to you. We welcome you here from Capital Prep. The floor is yours, LaQuana. Principal Alexander, thank you.
Good day, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to actually come and meet with each of you. I do not have a presentation. My goal was just to come and introduce myself. I have come to Capital Prep Harlem as of September 5th. I am looking forward to meeting with everybody in Harlem, building some partnerships and getting our feet to the grounds and seeing what is out there. But for those of you that don't know, we are located on 2041 Madison Avenue. That is on 130th and Madison Avenue. We was previously located on the east side, and this school has now been here for 2 years. We are a social justice school. Our scholars have 100% rate into a 4-year school with getting into some of the top Ivy League colleges out there. To date, we have about 40 to 50 college acceptances to date, with a large amount of scholarships as well. So I'm just coming here just to introduce myself and to say hi and just to be a part of the community and get a chance to get to know everybody. Next month, I will definitely be in person so I can shake hands and exchange contact numbers. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, LaQuana, and thank you for being here today. We look forward again to working with Capital Prep and you as the new principal. Our district manager, Angel Muscane, asked if we could set up a tour. So one of our goals this year is to visit both DOE and charter schools in our community. And we had another charter school here present for the last few weeks, but moving forward, we'd like to start with tours with you as our first charter school, as you are a new principal. So maybe after January, when we get settled in after the holiday, we'll come out and visit.
And just so you guys know, we do have an open house this Thursday at 5 o'clock. So from 5 to 7 p.m. is our first open house. I will send out a mass email. David, I'll send out the email to you. We have a couple of in-person open houses as well as some Zoom open houses. We do have openings from grades 6 through 12. Yes.
Yes, I understand. This is a middle and high school collaboration.
Correct,
So students start in middle and they go through the high school program as well. I do have some students, I believe, still attend as they moved up to the new school. So I'll check on you with them students, see how they're doing.
Perfect.
Thank you, LaQuana. And I would also encourage, and I'll set you up with the East Harlem Consortium. It is another that's reached out and would like you to, just show face and introduce yourself. So
I can show face. I can also do a full presentation to both this one and to the consortium as well.
yes, we look forward. Same thing we did with another charter school. They came and introduced themselves, came back and did a follow-up, and we had a great presentation. So thank you.
All right.
Any questions for Principal Alexander? Okay, we continue. We have one more presentation. Thank you again, LaQuana. Talk soon. Last but not least, today we have the new educational law project providing free legal services to students experiencing school avoidance and chronic absenteeism from the Manhattan Legal Services. And again, this ties in to some of the things that were mentioned earlier of kids feeling not safe. They may feel safe in school, but they may not feel safe going to school. So please welcome and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name's Haley Cunningham. I am, I have to always remember what my title is, the Kirkland and Ellis Public Service Fellow at Manhattan Legal Services. And this is a new project that we just started in September. So I'm excited to talk to you all about it. Okay, so, oh, and this is my supervisor, Tanya Douglas.
Hello.
Okay, so on the next slide. A little bit about Manhattan Legal Services. So we are part of Legal Services NYC, and you can see some of the data about us there. Manhattan Legal Services, for our part, has a staff of more than 104 offices all across Manhattan, including one pretty nearby. And our goal is to fight poverty, seek racial, social, and economic justice for low-income New Yorkers. We're the largest civil legal services provider in the country. So we have a lot of excitement and so on the next slide. You can see some more about our clients. All of our clients are low-income New Yorkers. And there's just some more information about what exactly that means. In East Harlem, more than 11,000 children live in poverty. And so those would be specifically my clients for my project. On the next slide, you can see sort of all of the program areas. I work just in the education. Tanya does disability and education. If you have questions about any of these areas, you could let me know and I can point you to the appropriate person to ask. But we do, again, civil legal services. So everything you see here is work that we help with.
So what?
Yeah. That's why there's 700 lawyers. It's a lot to do. So on the next slide. Okay, this is just some information I pulled from ProPublica. I typically give this talk to funders, so people who haven't been around kids since they were kids themselves. So I just like to give some kind of background information about how New York City public schools have been grappling with educational inequities for decades, and the pandemic, as we all know, was really impactful on low-income students and low-income students of color with disabilities in particular, and exacerbated problems that have existed for decades. On this slide, you can see some of those in particular called out, and how it really highlights the gaps in educational equity for students of color. So on the next slide, I'll talk specifically about students with disabilities. There are 3 federal laws and a bunch of state and city laws that specifically protect students with disabilities. In New York City, there are 200,000 students with disabilities in New York City public schools. And the goal is to provide special education to them. It's supposed to be no cost to the parent. The services are supposed to be free, appropriate for the student, and designed for that particular student in mind. It can include special classes or special schools and related services. So that means services that are meant to help children access curriculum and relationships with their peers. So the related services can include academic tutoring, counseling, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. Where my project really comes in is that during the pandemic, so 2020, 2021, and into 2022 as well, 1 in 4 students with disabilities did not get their legally mandated services. That's 50,000 students citywide and about 1,500 students from East Harlem specifically. So it means that those students are falling further and further behind academically and socially and behaviorally without those appropriate supports that they are legally required to get that are going to help them access the curriculum and their peers. And since then, we've just seen it compound year after year after year with more children being left behind. So on the next slide.
You know, that's the interesting thing. Although more children are being left behind, they're not leaving. Kids are not achieving what they need to move on.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Yes. And this is a quote from a parent that I just think is like really impactful, and I love this picture. So the project is the School of Women's Project. I'm sorry, the font got a little messed up. But essentially a consequence of missing all of those services and falling behind is chronic absenteeism and school avoidance. So students often know that they're falling behind their peers. They often know that they're different, especially when they're like 11 and a little older. They know that they can be the subject of bullying. They know that they're safe or not safe. And so oftentimes kids just don't want to go to school because they don't want to see themselves in that light. So through our project, we address issues of chronic absenteeism and school avoidance by working with families and children who are experiencing such attendance issues. So in the next slide, we'll talk more about chronic absenteeism, which is when a student misses at least 10% of school days per year. So last school year, 27% of students were chronically absent. In East Harlem, I have the numbers specifically for District 4, it's 31%, and District 5, it's almost 40%, which is almost 3 times the national average. And it really just means that missing too many days can cause the students to fall behind. It increases their risks of dropping out, increases their risk of falling into the school to prison pipeline, and really further harms their quality of life. There can be many different reasons a student is absent. They might be sick, serving out of school suspension, or they might be experiencing school avoidance, which is on the next slide. So school avoidance is when a child refuses to go to school, or once at school has routine problems staying in the classroom. So school avoidance can look many different ways for many different children. It's often related to a child's past and ongoing trauma, like we were talking about earlier with the gun violence. And it really takes a dedicated team to figure out the best approach for getting kids back to school. Like my slides say, estimates can be as high as 28% of youths will experience school avoidance at some point in their educational careers. School avoidance is also considered a symptom and not a diagnosis itself. So if a student is experiencing school avoidance, that doesn't mean they're automatically a student with a disability, but it really is almost always paired with chronic depression, generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, and other mental health illnesses that do qualify the student as a student with disability. So they would get appropriate legal supports. IEP. So on the next slide.
You know, I just wanna, the important thing what you said there about the school avoidance also, there are kids that, and now that I'm in school now for 6 years, there are kids that cannot make it through the day in the class.
Absolutely.
And remarkably, they're out of the class and for large periods of time, which affect, again, you're missing learning how to do fractions at that 1 minute. You're not there, and then you come in and you're lost, right?
Right.
And then it becomes exacerbated and COVID.
Yeah, and the next day when they're adding fractions, you don't know what a fraction is, so it's impossible to try to catch up, and you just feel further and further behind. Yeah, so what we do is we provide free legal assistance to families with students with disabilities. And a lot of the work, especially right now, because we recently started, is direct representation. So working with families and students, like I said, with IEPs, sort of helping them navigate the DOE bureaucracy, suspension, hearing, representation, is something that we do. A lot of the kids are having trouble staying in the classroom. And really ensuring that students are being accurately identified by the schools as students with disabilities, so they can receive those appropriate services. And we're also looking to sort of do more systemic impact work as well, and looking to see if any of the DOE's patterns and practices are discriminatory, especially racially discriminatory. And we're very interested in partnering with community-based organizations to develop best practice guidelines for schools, potentially implementing transfers regulations, doing know your rights workshops for families, and so they know what their rights are. It's a really confusing process. It's not made to be easy. And I've been doing this work for a couple of years at this point. Tany's been doing it a really long time, and we're constantly learning new and confusing things. So we're really just here to try to help families.
We're all looking for solutions.
Yeah, exactly. So I have some flyers, and then the next slide is just my contact information.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions? What was it?
Sorry, when you were showing the data for District 4.
Yeah.
Right, does that include charter schools, high schools, District 75 students? Because it's like different.
Pockets of
Yes.
educational systems.
I got that data from your own website, from the community portal.
So we know it's accurate.
No.
You know, when I've done research, I find the Citizens Committee on Children one of the most accurate and up-to-date information on demographics in communities. And it is a great resource. I used to love when they made the book, I would keep it as a Bible, but now you can get it all online, so. That's a great thing. If you could also please send us your presentation.
Yeah.
So that we have, or do you have it? Because I think the statistics that having to grab a phone and take pictures, but
Yes.
I would definitely, I know when I got the information was on the.
You pull it from the statement of needs.
Christine, yeah,
Right. We
Okay,
all have access to the statement of needs. So that's where, every year we annually try to update the data as best as possible, and we pull it from our DOE sources, from our census, et cetera, so forth. And our committee members also have access to it, so, you know.
well, we have to educate everybody.
Yes,
You know, we don't
so
have
if
to
they-
really want to-
If they have more updated metrics, you
Yeah.
know, that'd be, please.
Data changes on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
so, I don't have a question.
Oh, okay.
It's more to, I guess, you guys, right? I've been teaching working in this system for 24 years. This may sound bad, but it's just how I feel, so I apologize if all these programs, they all sound really good, but nothing is going to change, nothing is going to happen until they change the DOE system. Kids don't go to school because they're bored. They're bored. The schools are shut, okay? They, every time you get a chance to, it's new curriculum, it's new books, it's new everything. Teachers don't get a chance to master anything, so if they can't master the curriculum, how are they supposed to teach it? Everybody is floundering in the buildings, right? And so when you have teachers floundering and principals floundering, because they don't know what's happening, you can't help teach these kids. And if you can't teach them, that's what we're gonna have. That's what we're gonna have. And if it doesn't change, this is just gonna be something that's gonna be our reality. We have more and more kids dropping out. Excuse me. More and more kids not going to school. More and more kids just failing across the board, you know? I love all these different programs. I love that everybody is trying all these different things. But in my heart, I just feel like nothing is gonna change until we change the DOE system. The way we teach our children, the things we teach them. We used to teach them home economics. I watched this kid on TikTok today talk about, why do we go to schools, right? And we're not teaching the kids anything. We're not teaching them how to survive. We're not teaching them how to live. When they leave these high schools, first of all, you got kids in high school still reading on the 4th and 5th grade reading level. Where are they going? Where are they going, right? If we don't teach these kids some skills, some real life skills, we're gonna always be sitting there talking about what can we do and what programs can we bring and who can we partner with. And it's just gonna be a cycle. And I
Can't
yield.
stop though.
And I yield.
We have to continue.
We can't stop.
I know we can't, but we gotta start thinking forward about how do we change this system? Cause we can sit here every day, every month, every week and talk about more programs and more communities and more collaborations, but where are we going? What are we doing?
You know, part of it is also people understanding what their rights are.
Right.
And when you look at the data, right, not only does the data differ by race, but it differs by economics. So,
Absolutely.
you know, school avoidance and absenteeism, middle class parents got a handle on this.
They do.
And so the issue becomes like, how do we make the DOE in New York City, which primarily has Black and brown kids, most of whom are low income. How does the DOE then begin to function in ways that are consistent with laws? And so that's what lawyers do, right?
Right.
So several years ago, we had brought a lawsuit around when the DOE was not properly addressing kids who were acting out, in quotes, and they would call the EMS on kids as young as 5 or 6. Right, and exactly. And so what has happened as a result of that lawsuit is that the Department of Ed has to have mental health providers. That the first course of action when a kid is acting out, and that's their term, I'm putting use quote, is not to call the EMS, is not to call the police, because you would not call the EMS or the police in Riverdale. Let's be real, right? Chelsea. So what has happened because of that lawsuit, the DOE has changed. So what we're trying to do is get people to understand what can happen around school avoidance, what has worked in other places, and it may be different here because the communities are different, right? There are cultural differences, but kids here need to have the same rights as anyone else. When kids don't graduate, that continues the part, right? That means they can't apply for city jobs without a high school diploma, let's be real. And that's usually a stepping stone. They can't go to college, right? So what we're looking at is how do we address some of those issues? And we want to partner with people. Yes, but there's a lot of things about the DOE that needs to change. Today, we're talking about the control of the school system. And whether it should go back. Some of us remember when the mayor wasn't in control.
Yes.
There's different ways of looking at how do you make sure that people truly participate and have a say. So what we're trying to do is make sure people understand what their rights are. Like we've seen really horrific cases in terms of like a case we had a few weeks ago where a parent was forced to homeschool her child because the school didn't know what to do to the child. That's not a solution.
No, not at
Right?
all.
Wow. So, and that's not, that, you know, there are other examples, and they said that only happens in certain communities, right? Why weren't resources looked at, like, so why isn't this kid staying in school? Do we need a different school setting? Do we need to have different resources? So that's some of the stuff that Kelly is looking at, and we wanted to bring this to your attention, because oftentimes this isn't stuff that people look at, right?
Right.
And kids aren't going to school, but it is a huge issue, right? And we saw just before, the reasons why, it could be around gun violence, it could be around people feeling unsafe going to school, but also the kids who feel unsafe in school, right? So we're looking at what we can do to make changes, and we hope to partner with you guys to say, here are individual cases, but we may also see, is there a systemic solution? So what best practices should the DOE be implementing? And what can we do to make sure that they start doing that?
Thank you.
Wesley, heartfelt what you're saying, that's your name right now. So that's the topic when we talk about the Department of Education, the Board of Education, whatever it is at that particular time. That's another, those are other discussions. When presenters present here, at any community level, they want to reach out and provide with remedies, solutions to potential problems and identifying. If we were to focus on education right now, we're talking about absenteeism. Why young people are not going to school? Where are they? We have programs that want to reach out to them to find out. Forget the part of it right now. What's wrong with that human being? What's wrong with the family situation? Why are the kids not motivated? Could be a bright kid not going to school for whatever reason, whether it's the most current topics of the day, gun violence, bullying. It could be something else. Programs like that get an opportunity to be able to see that and speak to it. Also, when we still have laws, kids have to go to school legally to 16. So when they're not there, there's another situation where they begin to have to address. So let's look at when organizations, programs bring people here, we're just trying to find a match. This program right here, I'm thinking about, we have programs that attract young people, but they're not attracting them all. So there are young people now who are unattached to these programs, and as long as you have to belong to a program, who's looking out for those that are not attached? And where do they come from? Because that could be, hey, that's for my child, but my child's not attached. So that's what I was saying.
Yeah, I'm a bit biased. I worked for Bronx Legal Services, when I was a social work student, so just same organization, but up in the Bronx.
When did you work there? That was where I started off.
I worked with Tara,
Of course, Lambert.
yeah. But she was my supervisor when I was a social work student, but I also found that students that were coming in for absenteeism, there was often other like legal problems, like maybe it was like they didn't have stable housing, so we were able to connect them with like the housing team. So I think they're all interconnected, so I'm sure we'd all say that they can come for that. And then also like the earlier the better. I found like if they're starting to notice an absentee problem, don't wait until you're facing harsher consequences. And a lot of it, again, like you said, it was related to just students not receiving the disability services that they needed, which in my opinion, like that's not the student being absent, that's like you said, like it's the school's fault. So
I got a question, sorry, it's me again. Have you guys thought about reaching out to attendance teachers? Because they usually do home visits when there are kids that are chronically absent.
I think we have in specific client situations, but not as a general thing yet.
Right, but you know, in the systemic issue, this is where community schools play a real
Yeah,
role.
absolutely.
Because although you have attendance people, that's a person or maybe two. When you have a community school, there's a team that support the youth in the school that may be affected. They call them various different kinds of counselors and supports. But see, again, these are all the things that tie into the funding, and we know that, you know, New York City has not got their share fund of the, what is that, the fair funding, you know, from the state, that the federal government that was supposed to get the funds, so we have never received the all the funds to support all these other things, you know, services. You know, when COVID hit, people could have been going to people's homes as opposed to schools, but we didn't arrange those things because of too many other complications or challenges. But those should have been the resolutions to serve, you know, some of us, and to be honest, in being in a DO school and in a DOE, we started August 2020 back in the school to provide some summer camps to kids that had not experienced anything. And again, the difference between those kids that came to program or school and those that not are so varied. You know, you could have a kid home with a parent and they were doing fine. You could have a kid home with one parent and 3 kids running around that only have one device to share, right? So who gets it? And that means everybody else suffers, right, or loses. And I've been in the school now 6 years, I've been working with children's aid 44 years. Never have I seen such a vast difference in such a short period of time that have impacted kids. Devastated kids, that may predict our futures and where we all go, you know, so. Yes, Roseanne and Christine. No.
If a parent were to call tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
How fast will you guys respond?
So a parent would call tomorrow, they would go to our intake line. I would get an email immediately when that's done, and I would email them within the day to set up an appointment to talk.
In how many languages,
All of them?
Yeah.
We use Translate. We have, at the intake line, there are people that speak a great number of languages.
And dialects.
And dialects of languages, and then any that they don't cover, we have translation services that we use that would.
I'm glad to hear, thank you.
Yes.
You know, that's another thing that's so different. I mean, the CECs have translation services, right? We're community board and we don't. Why? Why in one place in our community we would have this service that's citywide, right? These are citywide services and we don't have it in another. So how much are we valuing our constituents and being able to communicate to them? You know, I'm Italian Puerto Rican, I speak no Spanish. I speak no Italian.
It's fair, it's fair.
Right, yes. Thank you. Are there any other questions? You know, I want to thank everybody. We had really wonderful presentations tonight. I think everything touched on our basis. Just to reiterate, if we hadn't, you know, although our title says youth, we're not just about youth and youth education. We're about adults as well and adult education in our community and providing those supports to families as well. So I think everything has really been on the thread today, and I hope that we continue this work going forward. With that, we have finished our presentations. We do have a quick business to take care of on our own. We have new business. Do we do old business first? New business first. Right?
We have no old business item.
No, the old business was, as I mentioned earlier, we're tabling the mission statement. I would like to work with 2 or 3 people to complete it. We've created a book for a mission statement. And we do need to go back to edit it to make sure, you know, I think again, we're in a time and day and age where we want to make sure that we do not leave anybody out. And sometimes in trying to include everybody, we're gonna leave somebody out. So I think we need to look at how we reframe who the committee addresses and what is the major work of the committee. I think what we had is great and is inclusive, and I write a lot, I put too much as it is. But I think in terms of a mission statement, it needs to be a little bit more narrow to make sure that we're working on those things and can accomplish it. If it's too broad, we'll do a lot of things, but maybe not accomplish what should be most focused on.
I volunteer unless somebody else wants to do it.
Well, you know, I'm also a group worker and group leader, so I pick people if you don't choose. Thank you.
No pressure.
This is what it is, you know, I think everybody here is committed, and again, I thank everybody for being here tonight. It's been a long meeting. We do have one last mission, one last thing to address. We did address it last month, but we formally sent out the resolution around the air quality in schools. Rosa, why don't you just talk a little bit more, because it came through the CDC about that, so I can take a sip of water.
You have the,
The resolution should be. I didn't print that, actually, the resolution, I printed everything else.
Yeah.
And if we can get your presentation, we can have all this that.
So this resolution actually, we did one like last year also to keep monitoring the freshness of the air in the District 4 schools. And Manhattan Borough President. Is that what I said?
I'm sorry? You did not, if you're talking about the updated letter, I didn't get it.
So that's fine.
Yeah, this is the original resolution regarding.
All right, so you know what,
Yeah.
we'll table that, we'll send it out and then we'll
No,
vote on.
it's just like the top one, that's the only
It's
change.
just the-
Yeah, just the top one, that I,
Change, but
Yeah.
the
yeah,
language.
it's the
is-
content of the language of the bill by Manhattan Borough President, his bill INT 1127-2023 to require real-time monitoring and reporting on the air quality in schools, I guess in around Community Board 11, which is District 4 and District 5. And it actually wants to require the Department of Education in collaboration with the Department of Environmental Protection to issue real-time reports on the DOE website regarding air quality in schools, not to wait a year to report it. The bill also includes provision for the installation and maintenance of air quality monitoring devices in schools. It will also require the Department of Education and the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to engage in outreach and education regarding the indoor air qualities in the schools. For example, like asthma is one of the top causes of absenteeism in schools. Children are uniquely vulnerable to air pollution, due both to their physiology as well as the type and degree of their exposure to the air that they are in. The Environmental Protection Agency recognizes that the best way to improve indoor air quality is source control, improve ventilation and air cleaners. This bill will, within 18 months of passage, put standards that will address the maintenance of acceptable temperatures, relative humidity, and air changes per hour in schools within the city school district. Such standards shall also address the identification and control of airborne pollutants in schools within the city school district, including but not limited to carbon dioxide levels, carbon monoxide levels, levels of particulate pollution 2.5, and levels of particulate pollution 10.0, I believe it is. The average public school building in New York City is approximately 60 years old.
A lot
maybe
older than
100 years old. Wildfire, which we just witnessed back in, I believe, the summer, COVID-19, and other public health issues have made worrying about indoor air quality a daily issue for New Yorkers. The pandemic has further elevated how important it is to protect the health of students, educators, and everyone in the school community. Improving indoor air quality in our schools can mitigate the spread of illness, allergens, reducing absenteeism and healthcare costs for children and the staff alike while helping our students succeed academically. This bill will require real-time monitoring and reporting via a public dashboard describing air quality in public schools citywide. The dashboard will keep families informed on air quality in classrooms, cafeterias, auditoriums, gyms, and more. And on the air quality monitoring devices being installed and maintained in their children's school. The increase in pollutants and wildfire smoke in New York City is expected to rise over time. That's why the Community Board 11 supports the passage of the bill to set air quality standards and monitor and report on air quality in New York City public schools.
Thank you, Rosie. So not only is the air in the schools bad, we do know in East Harlem, we have bus depots. We have sanitation depots with oral. And, you know, this is the highway to get out of the city up First Avenue. Many of our kids do miss school because of asthma. So again, the thread continues in this last motion to support the letter of resolution. Do we have a motion to support? First, are there any questions? We want to move. Is there a motion to support the resolution?
I make a motion
Russell,
to support this.
made by Russell, second by Christine. Roll call, please.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Christina, seconded. Okay, so we should still have 6 committee members present with us, and so 4 needed for this vote to pass, okay? Karim Kauser? I'm sorry, 1 second. Rosa Diaz?
Yes.
David Giordano?
Yes.
Christina Johnson?
Yes.
Jennifer Meyer?
Yes.
And Russell Schuler?
Yes.
Pass, unanimous.
Thank you, everybody. Again, it's so important that when things come to our community, maybe do one source of form that we find to support it because it makes it stand out more, and it's more important that we all take a stand on it. It strengthens the act. Thank you again. Our next meeting will be January. Y'all be switching it back and forth. Right?
It's the second Tuesday of each month.
No, it's not the second Tuesday.
That's good, the first.
Yeah.
Sorry, this first Tuesday
Yes,
for
yes,
this
it's
month,
that.
but second Tuesday, normally second Tuesdays, so.
Everybody, Mr. Chair, I'm going to put 2 different hats on. So the first hat I'm gonna put on is for my not-for-profit Progressive Educate New Yorkers. We have a workforce job training class coming up in April. It teaches youth or young adults 18 to 45 of how to be insurance agents in the community. That class will be rolling out. I try to partner with Youth Build, so I'm gonna come back to you and see if we have some collaboration with there. Because not everybody wants to be in parks departments and give an opportunity for insurance. Insurance is much needed in the community. Pretty much the only independent broker that's still standing in the community to provide insurance for our community. So put on the district leader's hat. I am celebrating all the youth in the community. You should see a flyer on the table. It's gonna happen quarterly. They're gonna get a certificate and a nice little lunch. To give like accolades to all the hard work they've been doing. They can be an entrepreneur, they can be making decent grades in schools. You don't have to be all A's and B's. I want to try to make sure that we uplift our youth and provide positive feedback in our community. And that's very quarterly. So the first one is going to be rolled out January, February, March. So in April, they're going to give this big celebration. I'll put it on the website, and they're going to have lunch that's provided by our community partners in the community.
Nice.
Yes.
I tried to scan the QR code, but it says.
Okay, I'll release the permission. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Mann. Again, it's so important to bring community into space and make sure that we have opportunities for our youth and young adults and older adults as well. Again, I want to thank everybody. I hope everybody has a good holiday and with their loved ones, and if we got to move out of here, we got to. Yeah, you ready for the roll call? Let's roll call out. Thank you, Russ.
He's like, all right.
Ready?
No, that's all right. I'll be in the back here, 7:30 in the morning, drop the kids to school.
All right,
Yeah, I'm gonna do it when I get home.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mrs. Mann.
You're fine.
roll call, Karim Cowser,
Oh, present.
Rosa Diaz,
Present.
David Giordano,
President.
John Green, excused, Annie Hanson, absent, Christina Johnson,
President.
Sage Mason is absent, Jennifer Meyer,
Present.
Asher Rodriguez, excused, Isaac Scott, absent, Russell Schuler. That's it, Chair.
Thank you all. Thank you again for coming. See you soon.
Buenas noches.
And then the 6 That's fine.
And Harvey will be doing.
But Triolo.
And then Harvey will bring.